Nashville promised melodies, then whispered doubt. They called my dreams unmarketable. I called it fuel. Some echoes fade. Mine became an anthem. Nashville had always been more than just a city to me. It was the hum in my bones, the melody in my blood. I was Noah, 30 years old, and every fiber of my being was woven into the fabric of a song. My guitar, a battered old acoustic, was an extension of my soul, its fretboard worn smooth by years of striving, dreaming. I spent my nights in smoky dive bars, the kind where the scent of stale beer and forgotten dreams hung heavy in the air, playing my heart out for a handful of regulars and the occasional tourist. Each chord, each lyric, was a piece of me, a confession, a prayer for a record deal that felt perpetually out of reach. I believed in my music, deeply, fiercely, with the kind of naive optimism only a true artist can possess. I poured every ounce of myself into my craft, waking up with melodies in my head and falling asleep with lyrics scribbled on cocktail napkins. Hannah was there through a lot of it, or at least in the beginning. She was vibrant, ambitious, with eyes that sparkled when she talked about her own aspirations. An aspiring social media influencer, she saw the world through a lens of curated perfection and immediate gratification. We met at one of my gigs, and for a while, it felt like she understood, or at least tolerated, the fire that burned within me. She'd sit in the front row, recording snippets for her stories, a bright splash of color against the dimness of the bar. I remember feeling a surge of hope, a sense that maybe I wasn't so alone in this wild pursuit. But the Nashville struggle is real, relentless, and unforgiving. Years passed, and the record deal remained an elusive ghost. The gigs paid just enough to keep gas in my old truck and ramen in the pantry. Hannah's patience, I started to notice, was wearing thin. Her initial encouragement began to curdle into something sharper, a thinly veiled impatience. She'd say my dedication was admirable, but also, wasn't it a bit unrealistic? The way she'd emphasize that word, unrealistic. It felt like a tiny cut each time, slowly bleeding the hope from me. She'd watch me painstakingly work on a new song, her fingers scrolling idly through her phone, and then she'd offer a critique that wasn't really a critique, but a dismissal. My lyrics were too melancholic, my melodies too complex, my stories too niche. Who was going to buy that? She'd ask, with a sigh that carried the weight of her own fading belief in me. The dream that fueled me, the very core of who I was, slowly became a point of contention, a wedge driven between us. The stage, once my sanctuary, started to feel like an empty place, echoing not with applause, but with her unspoken disappointment. The air in our small apartment grew heavy with unspoken resentment. Every time I picked up my guitar, I could feel her eyes on me, not with admiration, but with a kind of weary judgment. She'd make comments about my lack of immediate success, comparing my slow, arduous journey to the instant fame she saw blossoming online for others. My music, she declared one evening, was unmarketable. A beautiful sentiment, perhaps, but certainly not a career. It felt like she was trying to carve out the very heart of me, dismiss the thing that made me, me. I tried to explain the difference between art and content, the long game versus the fleeting viral moment, but her eyes would glaze over. She wanted tangible results, a clear path to success, and my path was winding, overgrown, and often dark. Then came the producer. He was everything I wasn't, slick, confident, with a ready smile and a Rolodex full of industry contacts. He met Hannah at a networking event, and suddenly, her stories were full of his advice, his connections, his vision for her influencer career. I could see the shift in her, a renewed sparkle in her eyes. But it wasn't for me or my music. It was for the promise of a faster, shinier future. The arguments escalated, turning from subtle criticisms to outright accusations. She accused me of holding her back, of clinging to a dream that was dragging us both down. My music, she said, was a waste of talent. A waste of my talent. The words hit harder than any physical blow. They weren't just about my music, they were about my worth. The final conversation was brutal, cold, and utterly devoid of the warmth we once shared. She told me she was leaving, moving in with the producer. He understood ambition, she said. He understood what it took to make it in this town. And I was just wasting my talent on unmarketable dreams. She packed her bags, her movements swift and decisive, leaving behind a hollow silence that screamed louder than any argument. I watched her go, my guitar still clutched in my hands, the wood feeling suddenly heavy, lifeless. The door closed, and with it, the last flicker of hope I had for us, for my music, for myself. I sat there for hours, the Nashville night pressing in around me, utterly devastated. The songs that had once brought me solace now felt like mocking echoes of a future that would never arrive. It was the lowest I had ever been, truly believing I had wasted everything, that she had been right all along. The temptation to just put down the guitar, to walk away from music forever, was almost unbearable. The weeks that followed were a blur of cheap whiskey and self-pity. My apartment, once filled with the hopeful strumming of my guitar, became a tomb of silence and despair. I barely ate, barely slept, the ghost of Hannah's words haunting every waking moment. Unmarketable dreams. Wasting your talent. They echoed in my head, insidious and relentless. I stopped going to my regular gigs, canceling them with weak excuses. My guitar sat in its stand, gathering dust, a painful reminder of a dream I felt too broken to pursue. I was adrift, lost in a sea of my own making, convinced that I was a failure, that my passion was nothing more than a childish fantasy. It felt like the very soul had been ripped out of me, leaving an empty, aching void. Just when I thought I couldn't sink any lower, a friend, a fellow musician who had seen me through countless rough patches, practically dragged me to an open mic night. I didn't want to play, didn't want to sing, but he insisted, saying it was better than drowning in sorrow alone. Reluctantly, I went, my guitar feeling foreign in my hands. I played a few old songs, my voice raw and strained, but something shifted that night. After my set, a man with kind eyes and a thoughtful expression approached me. He introduced himself as David, an owner of a small, independent label. He told me he'd been following my music for a while, quietly, from afar. He said my songs had a depth, a raw honesty he rarely encountered. He saw the pain in my performance that night, but also the undying spark beneath it. He offered me a small deal, a chance to record an EP, no strings attached, just a belief in the authenticity of my voice. It was a lifeline thrown into the deepest part of my despair. I didn't fully trust it at first, still reeling from Hannah's betrayal, but David's earnestness was hard to deny. I spent the next year holed up in a tiny studio, pouring every ounce of my heartbreak, my anger, my resilience, into my music. The pain of betrayal became the fuel for my lyrics. The feeling of being told I wasn't good enough, that my dreams were worthless, transformed into a fierce determination to prove them wrong. Every chord I struck, every word I sang, was imbued with the weight of my past and the burgeoning strength of my spirit. I wrote songs about the empty stage, about the echoes of broken promises, about finding your own voice when the world tries to silence you. It was a cathartic, agonizing, and ultimately healing process. The music became my therapy, my confidant, the only place where I felt truly understood. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to rebuild myself, one melody, one lyric at a time.
My focus shifted from external validation to internal truth, from seeking approval to simply telling my story. The EP, Echoes of the Empty Stage, was released quietly. There was no big marketing push, no national radio play, just a grassroots effort fueled by David's unwavering belief and my own burgeoning fanbase, built from years of playing those dive bars. But something unexpected happened. People started listening. The raw honesty of the lyrics, the haunting melodies, they resonated with an audience craving something real in a world full of manufactured sounds. Critics, initially skeptical of an unknown artist from Nashville, began to take notice. They praised the album's emotional depth, calling it a masterclass in confessional songwriting. My songs, once deemed unmarketable by Hannah, were suddenly being called authentic, profound, and deeply moving. The album became an unexpected sleeper hit. It wasn't an overnight explosion, but a slow, steady burn that grew into a roaring fire. My fan base swelled, people connecting with the vulnerability in my voice, the universal themes of heartbreak and resilience. I started touring, first in smaller venues, then larger ones, the crowds growing with each stop. Seeing faces in the audience, singing along to lyrics I had penned my darkest hours, was a surreal, humbling experience. I was no longer just a struggling musician. I was a respected artist, my name appearing in music magazines and on festival lineups. It felt like a vindication, not just for me, but for every dreamer who had been told their passion wasn't good enough. The success wasn't about fame or fortune for me. It was about the validation of my art, the proof that my truth resonated. It was about standing on a stage, feeling the power of my own voice, and knowing I had done it on my own terms, fueled by the very pain that had once threatened to break me. I had found my melody, and it was stronger, truer, than anything I could have imagined. Life had a funny way of circling back, of presenting old ghosts in new costumes. My success, once a quiet, personal triumph, had grown beyond the confines of the independent scene. My music video for Empty Stage, a simple, poignant black and white piece, started getting play on national networks. It was everywhere. And that's when Hannah reappeared. Her influencer career had never truly taken off. The producer she'd left me for had moved on to other, shinier projects, leaving her in the dust of her own unfulfilled ambitions. I heard whispers through mutual friends, stories of her struggles, her attempts to rekindle old connections. I tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the present, on the path I had forged for myself. Then the messages started. First, a casual congratulations on my success. Then, more frequent, more personal. She praised my authentic voice, claiming she always believed in my raw talent, that she knew I had it in me all along. The words felt like a cheap imitation of genuine support, a desperate attempt to rewrite history. Each message was a jarring reminder of the past, of the pain she had inflicted. I never responded. I simply couldn't. What was there to say? The person she claimed to have believed in was the person she had dismissed. The dream she had called unrealistic was the very dream I was now living. Her words fell hollow, like an echo in a place where only real sound mattered. I learned to filter her out, to let her messages sit unread, focusing instead on the genuine connection I had with my fans, with my band, with my music. It was a strange, bittersweet feeling, seeing her reach out from the periphery of my life, a life she had once been so central to, now reduced to a distant specter. The Ryman Auditorium, the mother church of country music. Standing on that stage, looking out at a sold-out crowd, felt like the culmination of everything. Every dive bar gig, every rejection, every tear shed over a broken lyric, it all led here.
The roar of the crowd was a physical force, a wave of pure adoration and shared emotion. Midway through my set, bathed in the soft glow of the stage lights, my eyes swept across the VIP section, a routine glance. And there she was, Hannah. Her face was older, a little harder, but unmistakable. She looked a little surprised I was looking her way, a small, tentative smile playing on her lips. How she got a ticket, I didn't know, probably through some distant acquaintance, leveraging a past connection. The sight of her sent a jolt through me, a fleeting flicker of the old wounds, quickly extinguished by the warmth of the moment, the energy of the crowd. Between songs, as the applause began to fade and the stage crew adjusted microphones, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I knew it was her. I didn't even need to look. I felt the familiar weight of her presence, amplified by the digital tether. I pulled it out, almost unconsciously, and saw the text. That song. It still moves me. We made magic, Noah. My gaze drifted back to her section, a familiar face in a sea of adoring fans. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. I took a deep breath, the air thick with anticipation. This was it. This was the moment. The stage lights felt brighter, the silence of the Ryman more profound. I leaned into the microphone, the cool metal a grounding presence against my lips. This next song, I said, my voice cutting through the hushed reverence, is for anyone who ever had a dream, and for anyone who was told that dream wasn't good enough. It's for the dreamers who kept going anyway. My words hung in the air, a quiet declaration. I didn't look back at her. I didn't need to. Then, I launched into it. A raw, powerful ballad, one of the first I'd written after she left, a song about self-worth, about finding your own light, and about the quiet strength of leaving the past behind. My fingers flew across the fretboard, each note a deliberate statement, each lyric a testament to the journey I'd endured. My voice, full of the very pain she had inflicted, now transformed into an anthem of triumph, soared through the Ryman, echoing off its hallowed walls. I poured every fiber of my being into that performance, a silent conversation with my younger, broken self, a promise fulfilled. My gaze never specifically returned to her section, remaining instead on the vast, beautiful expanse of faces, all lost in the music, all part of this shared, healing moment. This wasn't for her. It was for me, and for everyone who had ever felt small. Hannah watched from the VIP section, a silent, unacknowledged witness to the culmination of my journey. The song, filled with the echoes of our past, the very pain she had inflicted, was now his anthem of triumph, celebrated by thousands. She saw my gaze sweep over the crowd, encompassing everyone but lingering on no one, certainly not on her. There was no recognition, no acknowledgement, no hint of the magic she claimed we made. Just a man, on a stage he had earned, performing a song that had become his liberation. She realized then that her praise, her claims of belief, meant absolutely nothing. She was just another face in the crowd, a spectator at the success she had once disdained, a ghost in a story where she no longer had a part. I finished the song to thunderous applause, a standing ovation that vibrated through the floorboards and into my soul. A profound sense of vindication washed over me, a liberation from the chains of the past. The feeling wasn't one of bitterness or revenge, but of pure, unadulterated freedom. My music, born from suffering and celebrated on my own terms, was the only connection I truly needed. It was enough. More than enough. The old wounds had scarred over, not erased, but transformed into the strength that now pulsed through every melody I played. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I had found my way home, not to a person, but to myself. Hannah was simply left to spectate, a distant echo in the triumphant symphony of my life.